behind you?
This is called the big hoist. For hoisting the rock, the skips, and also has the band deck to lower the men down the mine. When this cable is down the bottom of the mine, with all the weight of the cable, the deck, the skip full of rock, it stretches, it loses its size, it looks like down, it just stretches the cable. The tremendous weight of everything, including the cable, are hanging down the shaft. This isn't a double drum hoist. One is an overshot, which the cable comes in over the top. The other is an undershot, which the cable comes in under the bottom. That's counterbalance. One is going down when the other one's coming up. When they're hoisting rock, one is going up full of ore and the other one's going down empty to be loaded. And when you put the cable on these drums, start with, there's a hole in that drum, and you bring 5 or 6 feet of that cable inside that drum, and then climb inside the drum. There's a wedge type clamp in there that you put that cable in, and you clamp it to the main shaft of that hoist. Then it comes out through the hole, and then you start rolling it on. That drum is grooved, so the cable fits right in the grooves. You got to make sure it's in the groove all the way across. When it hits this end, you go back across until all the cable is on the drum. It's secure. When it's rapid, it goes, you can't believe how fast the hoist can run. Just going back and forth like that. Now the undershot cable comes in like that. It's the same way. Got a hole in there, and in goes the cable, and it's put into that clamp and locked on. Now, when you got the other end of the cable out here, you put a clevis. This clevis is going to hook onto the cage. You put 7 clamps. You put 3 up and 4 down. Okay? And you clamp the cable, the tail of the cable, to the hole of the cable. In this mine here, the U's are the clamps. It's a regular clamp with a U and then the saddle and the nuts. When you put this on this mine, you had to turn the U's backwards so that they would ride over the wheel, because with this short head frame, the clamps were up. 3 of the clamps were in the wheel before the skip was dumped into the dumper. All the other mines had it the opposite way because you had bigger frames and higher frames. Close. That the U's had to be able to ride over the wheel. Had it been the other way, when the saddle and the nuts came up, the bolts, it would have broke the outer flange of the wheel. The wheel on this head frame is a 10-foot diameter. It's moved, then the cable blade. To this day, I don't know if anybody still around here knows how fast this hoist would actually go. It was air good. They tell me that when this was coming up empty, and if the engineers kind of put the throttle to it a little bit, why you were all over the deck, you had to tie your hat on to get out of here, your hard hat. But each had governors on it, so they could not run that fast. But I never knew what the timing was, but it was hard to believe that this could go down, one side go down, fill up with ore, and be coming back up in just a matter of minutes, and then all day long. From the time the shift went down the mine till took the skips off at 3 o'clock, 3:30, and hoisted them in again, I don't know how many tons went in there. Now when you're changing this cable, this mine had copper water on it. These cables were tarred, but eventually the cable would start getting in, the copper water start getting into the inside of the cable. So what they did, they had 2 inspectors off the rope gang. They were called the cablemen. They were 2 ropemen. They would come over here and they'd tar the cable. Once a week these cables were tarred. When this cable was tarred, all the ladies in this around here were told not to wash clothes. Because the tremendous speed that cage was going, that's all over. Okay. When they deemed that the copper water was getting too strong on the cable, they'd shut it down, and you had it. What you did, you set up a reel right out there, a wooden reel, and you took off that cable. When you got the first part of the cable that was hooked onto the deck, you blocked the deck up there. When you took off the cable and the clevis, you measured 19 feet up that cable. That's where you cut it. And you brought that end over on the drum, and you had an air hoist set up here, and you rolled off all that cable onto that drum, onto the reel. You come in here when the end come, you took this and cut 31 feet off of it. That's increments of 50 feet. The reason you cut 31 feet off of this, with the tremendous speed this cable's going, it hits the side of the drum, whack, whack, back and forth, it whacks. Just like that. It starts to flatten that part of the cable out. All right, you cut 31 feet off here, 19 off there, that's 50 feet off that cable. That's put in the book. Okay, when you put it all back on again, that part that was slapping is now out in the middle of the drum. So, the same with then this end here. You're ready, everything's ready. You got all the cable ready to go, so you start taking it back in again. You pull all this cable back that was on this reel right up through, back on this hoist. But the first layer, you stand in here with a sledgehammer, and they got a rope tied back over there with a hook on it, and it pulls that cable. Just got the first row's got to go on real slow, so that it fits in the grooves. Had it not, then you're going to get the cable jumping, and it'll be all over that drum. So get the first one and you beat it, each one, and make sure that it goes right in that drum. Once the first layer's on, take off. Go as fast as you want. Okay, when you get to the end out here, you put on a new clevis. Every time you change a cable, you put a new clevis on. The clevis goes on the hook, on the ring on that cage, the drawbar. That's where you take and you bend it over, tie it down with a rope, then you put your clamps on. 4 on the bottom, 3 on the top. 7 cable clamps. 1.5 inch clamps go on this one. You got an air gun and you just bury them right into that cable. But like I said, the top, the cables on this, the clamps on this cable go backwards. The U's reach towards the wheel. So they're round, so they go right into the groove of the...
How do you connect the 19 feet that's on there with the cable that's come back out of it?
You don't, you throw it away.
You throw it away and you start with the cutting.
Both ends are fresh.
Okay.
You got 19 feet and you got 31 feet. You just throw that 31 feet out. You cut that right in here. Throw it out in the yard out there. Then you throw it in the truck and take it up. You put it up in the dump.
How do they tar the cable every week?
They had a box and it sits right over the top of the shaft. And the cage is sitting right below there, and they got 4 or 5 gallon drums of tar. And the cable just fits through the hole in the bottom of the box. You open the box up, put it around there, lock it, then you give the engineer 2 fast belts. And he takes off, and you're pouring in 5 gallon buckets, and then the other guy pours his. When it gets down the bottom, them 4 barrels should be in 4 buckets. 25 gallons of tar go on that cable. And then when it's coming back up, you better be out the way. It throws it everywhere. That's the thing, like the Kelly, everything, though, the prevailing winds in Butte blow to the west, from the west. So most of the tar went over there, and the house is over there. And you, honest to God, you take that up there, 100 feet up there, and it's throwing that tar, and it could make it almost to Wyoming Street.
Now, how often did you have to clean the tar to get it off the sheave wheels or off the rope?
It all depended on the buildup. You only clean the tar off of the deck and the wheels, because it had built up in the flange, the tar would, and it'd start, especially in the winter time, it'd start lifting the cable up. So usually in the spring of the year, put 3 ropemen or 3 or 4 ropemen would go up, and 2 would be cleaning the deck, while the other ones would be cleaning the tar out of the wheel. On the back side of the head frame, where the cable was over your head, you had a Pulaski's, or you had, they were like scrapers, but they were long handles on them, and you just break all that tar and fall down here onto the apron up there, that catch apron. And then when you get all that cleaned up there, then usually maybe some of them like the Con and like the Ran and the Belmont and the Anselmo, and then and this one here too, this was a big producer. You might do that once every year, but early in the spring while the tar was still hard, because in the summertime you get up there, you'd stick to the... Also, they had a maintenance man by the name of Dick Watson, who lived right over there on Main Street. His job was every day he climbed the head frames. Now he might go to Con, to Kelly, the Badger, and the Lexington. Then he would tighten down. Every one of these wheels had grease cups on them. Tighten them down, keep the grease on the wheel, under the bearings. He also had his tar, his grease and everything were stacked up there on a head frame. He had to fill them, like the Kelly. When they were running full bore on the Kelly, they had air hoses blowing against the bearings to keep them cool. The air was right up against the bearings to keep them cool. He had to keep these wheels were greased. They had a grease cups about that tall on top of them. You just turn them on, down, onto the... But John Lavelle and Herb Muller, in my time on the rope gang, took care of the wheels. Watson took care of the fans, they took care of the cable. Dick Watson, took care of the sheave wheels and the fans. But like I say, he had so many to climb, but he had them measured out, because he done most of them in the morning and he done his fans in the afternoon. Fans had the same thing. They had motors, they had gears, they had bearings, they had to be, so he had to, when he went in them buildings, he shut the fan down. And then he'd grease put all the cups in and grease them and get everything all greased and oil and everything, and then on the way up, hit the button.
Now, how about telling us of the parts of this head frame?